Some folks rolling in, a little quiet this evening. That's all right. We're still here. We're excited to share all sorts of fun information for this final webinar series. Oh, we got someone in the chat. Oh, hello. Oh, lovely evening. Oh, we've got our friends from Scotland.
Up late again tonight.
Welcome back. Yes, welcome back. Did you do anything to celebrate over there earlier today when you were, well, I don't know. I don't know how that works. I know you're ahead. Hello from mid-Michigan. Welcome, Lisa. Lisa, how did you find out about our webinars? We've got the chat active, folks. So if anyone wants to pop in and tell us where they're coming from tonight, hi, Mom, coming in from Chester, New Hampshire. That's our neighboring town. Or share something that they do to commemorate the summer solstice, Litha, our longest day. Event. Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Lisa. Thanks so very much. We're glad you're back. Should be a good night. Got someone raising a hand too. What does that mean? I don't remember how that works.
A lot of people from away. This is interesting. The folks that are talking right now are all from far, far away.
This is great.
There we go. Spot for New Hampshire.
The Peregrine Falcons are extending their reach, perhaps now that they've fledged. Awesome. This is exciting. So we will be starting promptly at 7 o'clock because we understand that there's still a lot of lingering light out there for those of you itching to get back outside, but we've got a jam-packed presentation this evening and are eager to begin. So right at 7, I'm shifting directly into presenter mode and we will begin. But until then, feel free to chit chat. We will be going full webinar mode again this evening. We've got less people scheduled to attend than in the past, which makes sense with the weather and the time of year. But we are going to stay in webinar mode, which means that we cannot see you guys at all. You're set to mute. Your video is off, so feel free to do whatever it is you're doing over there, whether it's having supper or having snacks. We cannot see you, so feel free to indulge while we provide some entertainment this evening. All right. It's great to see some returning names here. I'm recognizing quite a few of you. All right, so I think I'm gonna send you guys just the quickest poll in the world in just a second, right at 6:59. The poll is just asking you if you have attended, if this is like your first, your second, your third, your fourth, or your fifth time joining us. So the question is just going to be, how many Resilient Raptor webinars have you attended? Oh, thanks, Allison. Still got daylight way to the west. Only 3 or 4 hours. Oh, that's awesome. So I'm reading the chat, guys. Feel free to go in there and peruse. It's pretty awesome. There's some fun stuff occurring. All right, let's get that poll. Oh, I don't have that poll. Oh no, where did I do that poll? Oh gosh. All right, just kidding. Pretend I didn't say that. Figure it out later. Oh, technology, it still gets me every time. Every time. All right. Chris, just so you know, there's someone named Hildy Danforth who is saying hello.
Good. I already said hello to them.
Oh, right on. You did a little private message. Look at you, Sneaky McGee.
Yes, I did.
Oh. Yes, my mother is writing in the chat that she has thoroughly enjoyed the webinars and following the Falcons, and I can vouch for that because anytime I'm visiting, all I can hear is the Falcon babies screaming in the background because they're being broadcasted via YouTube on the big screen or her cell phone. It's pretty awesome. It's every little unnerving when you hear the Peregrine Falcons coming from random places throughout your house or your workplace. Alrighty, guys. So it is officially 7 p.m. on the longest day of the year. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's 5th and final Resilient Raptors webinar, where we have been highlighting the unparalleled Peregrine Falcon for 5 whole months. It seems like we just began this, but we have not. We are wrapping things up, and you guys have been a part of something totally new that could not have occurred without your support. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you to those of you who have attended in the past, and thank you for sure to several of our sponsors and our partners, which we'll get to in just a moment. Before we begin, I would like start with an acknowledgement by saying that this presentation is streaming to you from our state headquarters in Concord, New Hampshire, which is located within the site of the ancient village of Pennacook in Endakina, which is the traditional ancestral homeland and waterways of the Abenaki, Pennacook, and Wabanaki people, past and present. I would like to acknowledge and honor with gratitude the land and the waters and our ancestors, the Alnambak, who have stewarded Endakina throughout the generations for thousands of years. New Hampshire Audubon is honored to continue the stewardship of these lands, providing opportunities for all people to form connections to the natural world through our programs and wildlife sanctuaries around the state. I invite you to learn more about the Indigenous presence on the land you occupy by visiting the website native-land.ca. Here, you can explore and click on territories of Indigenous people and get connected to resources to learn more. For a more in-depth understanding of the Granite State, check out all the educational resources at indigenousnh.com. Some quick Zoom information before we dive in. We are in full webinar mode, so again, you guys do not need to worry about us seeing you because your cameras are off and you are all set to mute. Please use the Q&A section of the Zoom strictly for questions, but feel free to inquire and make comments over in that chat box. Many thanks go out to Peregrine Networks for generously donating their cameras and streaming implements to bring that Nest Cam footage to our homes, offices, and classrooms. We'd also like to thank the folks at the Brady Sullivan Tower who offer their building to our Peregrine pair and ensure the safety and protection of the special space where our annual Falcon story begins. I'd also like to thank our pals over at the Manchester City Library and the Concord Public Library for collaborating with this particular brand new to us webinar series. We look forward to more opportunities in the future that help us to bridge literacy and the arts with science and conservation as we connect our communities through a shared interest in nature. Before we jump into tonight's presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to briefly describe how this webinar fits into the larger mission of New Hampshire Audubon. I'm also probably going to crank it up a notch in terms of how quickly my words per minute go, so we can get to the good stuff. For those of you who don't know, New Hampshire Audubon is a state-based environmental nonprofit organization that is completely independent from National Audubon. We rely on members and donors like you to support our charitable mission, which consists of 4 programmatic pillars: conserving around 10,000 acres of wildlife sanctuaries throughout the state for habitat as well as recreation, researching trends and discovering solutions for species in peril. Oops, jumped the gun. Connecting people to nature through environmental education, and protecting the state and the wildlife within it by encouraging sound legislative policy. Now, the good stuff. Here is our presentation outline for this, our 5th and final webinar. We're going to briefly go over the banding recap that happened only a month ago. A lot has happened between now and then. Then we're going to discuss briefly some longitudinal monitoring facts and facts and stats, I guess is what we'll do with that one. Yeah. The who, the what, the where, the why, and Chris is going to show us some actual stuff from that. We also have a little snippet from one of our other senior biologists here at the organization that I think you guys will really enjoy. She's super informative, and it gives us another perspective on some of the other species involved in longitudinal monitoring. Lastly, we're going to go over stats and discuss what occurs after the fledge, after they've been banned, after some have been attached with radio transmitters. Where do they go from there? And where can you go from here? Because we know a bunch of you are already itching for the what do I do now that I'm not watching them on the camera. So without further ado, let's do a quick photo montage. You guys know I like those, of the Falcon banding recap. Now, I do have a poll for this one, and it's coming your way. It's a super quick one. And all I'm asking is, did you view either live or recorded the banding of this year's Manchester Falcon chicks? So you should be seeing that coming your way in 3, 2, maybe 1. Oh my, okay, whoa, quite a bit of you. I will be including a link to see the recorded version later on tonight. So if you didn't get a chance to see it, no worries. And that is almost everybody participating. So it looks like we've got about, okay, a few more people. Oh no, no. Don't do that. No. All right, so I'm going to end that poll because I just want to keep it quick. So Chris, if you can see that, looks like we've got about 67 folks who were watching it, either recorded or live at one point in time.
That's outstanding. It really is. We didn't have the opportunity to do this work in front of a lot of people.
Who's this?
We've got like 2 other Chris Martins on the on this slide.
Is it me? Is it feedback?
I don't know. There's like, it looks like there's like 2 other of you. We're just gonna go with it. Anyways, let's jump on in. So yeah. Banding Day was on May 20th of this current year. And this is a photo for those of you guys who have never been up there, which is probably a vast majority of you, to show what's going on behind the scenes. It's not nearly what many people expect. It's not a pristine room. It's not an isolated chamber. It is a full-blown HVAC center in the upstairs.
This is the utility floor of the building. It's the top floor of the building. It's all pumps, equipment, and HVAC, like Willa says. And the picture on the right shows the nest box, which is not fancied up in any way, but it literally is a portal to the outside world. Right behind that foil that you see there, the box opens to the outside. So we can access it from the inside, but the birds only access it from the outside. And we're trying to keep the outside and the inside separate.
Agreed, absolutely. And that's why, for those of you who have seen any of the banding procedures, Chris is in and out very quickly, because worst case scenario would be mom or dad coming inside and getting loose in a very congested, very tight area that is not designed for wildlife. May 20th coincidentally coincided with my mama's birthday. So I just wanted to show a quick photo of her babysitting some of the birds that were already banded, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, happy belated, Mom. So this is Maria Colby, for those of you guys who have been kind of watching the past few weeks post-fledge, which we'll cover in a little bit, but this was before they had feathers that would allow them to fly. And Maria is the one who our 5th chick was named after. Maria operates Wings of the Dawn Wildlife Rehab over in Henniker, I believe, and works with all different types of wildlife. And she was there to assist with the banding and to meet her little namesake.
But she specializes in birds of prey, and most all the birds of prey that I work with, if they're injured or need care, they go to her.
Maria is such a gift to this community. And here is one of our first banding pals. Look at the talons, my friends. Look at the talons. And here is what Chris was using to determine who got what. The look of indignity.
Yeah, sometimes they're not very cooperative.
Times like this one.
I find the more we restrain them, the more they fight. So if we can just let them sit still, a lot of times that's the best plan.
And this, of course, is little Colby, and Maria was able to assist with that particular chick's particular banding. And then this was what we assumed was our first hatch, because this little rebel was up and about walking on the table and had to have a little talking to. This was the one, for those of you who have seen, and those of you who will see at some point that recording, that we had to put back in the bird box, not the nest box, the little bird carrier box, because they were just causing all sorts of trouble on the table.
She needed a timeout.
Indeed. And this, of course, is the final 5 with their new bling. If you look closely, except for that little goober in the back, you can see that the bird bands have been safely attached to all of the Manchester Peregrine Falcons. So let's talk a little bit about this banding situation and why it is we've got them on there. We're going to include some charts tonight so that we can discuss and imply what's going on with bands. It's not just jewelry. You guys know that. Chris, I'm gonna let you kind of take it away from here.
Sure. Now, what this chart shows isn't related directly to banding. This is actually the fact that we are working with these birds on a statewide basis. That's our charge through the Fish and Game Department, is to monitor the reproductive success of these birds all over the state of New Hampshire. And so we track statistics, whether the birds, the chicks get ID bands or not. We're tracking the successful nests and the number of pairs that attempt to nest. So there's 3 lines on this graph, and you'll see it goes back to the early 1980s. And that's one of the reasons we said longitudinal for studies, is these studies are done over time and over space. So we have a line that shows, the blue line shows territorial pairs, and very similar to the blue line is the red line, which shows active nests. The difference is we sometimes have territorial pairs that either don't nest, or we never discover the nest, or we find them so late we don't know if they nested. But so those lines actually go quite close together, and active nests is always slightly less than territorial pairs. The other line, the green line, is the amazing thing. It goes up and down in great swings, depending on the success or failure statewide of that year's nesting crop. And that has a lot to do with weather and other environmental factors that make some years better to lay eggs on exposed nest ledges, and other years not so good. So a late snowstorm, for example, oftentimes drops our nesting success for those particular years. This goes only through 2021. We are still working on 2022 because the Manchester pair was the first, essentially the first pair to fledge their young in the state. So we are still looking at nests with peregrine chicks currently. Shall I advance this, or is that your job, Willa?
I got you. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Again, we focus so much on what goes on in Manchester, and the Merrimack River Valley in southern New Hampshire is one of the places where we have multiple pairs, as you can see from these red triangles in southern New Hampshire. But you'll see the majority of peregrine pairs in our state are actually found in the White Mountains. That's the central part of the state there with all the red triangles. And along major rivers like the Androscoggin River and the Connecticut River on our western border. And you'll also see on this map the blue circles, which is nest sites that are located on the outside of New Hampshire, but where the territory includes a lot of New Hampshire. For instance, a cliff on the Vermont side of the Connecticut River. The territory clearly spans both states, but those blue circles are nests that actually occurred on the Vermont side of the river. So,
Continue on.
yes.
All right. So this slide is trying to impress upon you folks that there's a lot of different species, not just humans that are assisting with the banding. No, I'm just kidding. It's always humans doing the banding, but there's a lot of different species that they are banding. And I wanted to just give you a quick image of some of that. Sorry, I'm trying to do the chat at the same time. I'm going to focus. On that right-hand side, we have, Chris, do you want to talk about that one? Because that's the back of your head.
Yes, it is actually. This is again is Maria Colby and I at her facility in Henniker, working to put an ID band on a bald eagle chick that we're planning to release to the wild. They are a lot of work, and it often takes more than just 2 of us to put bands on a baby eagle. We wait to do that until Maria is certain that this bird is going to be releasable. We don't want to put ID bands on birds that are never going to be released. So we wait until essentially the day before or the day of the release, and we'll put an ID band on the bird then. I don't know, I might as well do it now since I have a chance here.
Yep, go ahead.
We've seen these Peregrine Falcon bands either through the video that you watched or otherwise. The Peregrine bands are, I'm trying to get this where it's a good spot in focus, are this size, about the size of a pencil. You can see the diameter of that band. In contrast, the bald eagle bands are this big, and you can see here the difference in the diameter of a bald eagle leg versus a peregrine falcon leg. Look at that. So There are two kinds of bans. There's the federal bans that are issued by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. And then there are color bands, which allow us, with their large characters and contrasting colors, they allow us to oftentimes get photographs or visually identify these birds from these codes on birds that we know are bald eagles. The other bands have a number code that's a lot like a Social Security number. It's unique. There's only one of those on any bird of any species. Good luck reading that. As you can see, it's very hard to read. But if the bird is recovered at any point, it can be verified that way.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. That worked out stupendous because you guys get the general idea of the size in real time. Now take a peek at the little teeny tiny band on the upper left-hand corner. My guess is you guys, using your little birdie brains, can figure out what species that belongs to. If we're talking about an eagle band being about this big, that's a picture of someone's forefinger with a little teeny tiny band. And it belongs to, some of you probably guessed it, a little tiny hummingbird. So we can band bird species as large as golden eagles, as large as sea eagles, and this particular photo, bald eagles, to as small of a specimen as a hummingbird, as long as it's done safely and securely and with permits and training. And you also notice I wanted to include the giant crane down below because there's different parts of bird anatomy that sometimes make it impossible for them to get that standard anklet or bracelet referral. You can see in this guy up here, it almost looks like it's down in this location. Depends on the species, but everyone that is implementing bands is incredibly well trained because the only thing that we don't ever want happening with the band is for injury to occur. So let's continue on. In addition to banding, so we can recognize species, there's also some really incredible new age radio telemetry that's occurring so that we can track and monitor these species while they actually move. Here at where am I, Chris? The NASA Basic Audubon Center in Auburn, we actually have a MODIS wildlife tracking system station on our building so that when birds that have been tagged, as in this absolutely gorgeous black-throated blue warbler, if you look closely at the bird in the center that's like navy blue with a beautiful black mask and some of the white in the coverts, there's a little tiny white dot in the center of his back. That is the radio transmitter.
The nano
tag. I'm sorry?
The nano tag, it's called.
Nano tag, yeah. So anytime that bird passes over one of these MODIS stations, these towers, boop, it gets tracked into the system where we get a notification, but people that follow it can also get a notification, and we can track where this bird is migrating to, from. We'll talk about that a little bit further, but it's not just birds that are getting tagged like this. We're doing them with monarch butterflies. It's occurring in different countries with species as rare and exotic as the pangolin in that bottom left-hand corner, and jaguars in South America, and elephants over in Africa. The bat does not have a radio transmitter on it, but it's still pretty awesome that we're able to band bats in an effort to recognize traits, trends, population increases, decreases, and to find out where they're going. This longitudinal monitoring allows us to discover, to document, to make predictions, and effectively protect the species that we're monitoring. Now, this is some cool stuff right here.
Well, I just want to mention that there are a number of different kinds of technology, from the MODIS nanotag system to radio transmitters that work on a short range basis to satellite transmitters that work on a much longer distance basis and actually involve the signal first going to space and then being collected and sent back to the Earth. So there's a whole variety of methodologies that are being used. And that's very interesting in and of itself. Engineering is definitely a key piece of this, as well as biology.
Oh, for sure.
So this is actually a rather crude, old picture of something as simple as where banded birds go. Now, this is not using radio or satellite telemetry. This is simply recovery of leg-banded peregrine falcons from various breeding sites and where their offspring ended up. Starting where they were banded at their natal nest sites and where they ended up. And what you can see from this map, although it's like spaghetti, it's very confusing, is that there's a tendency, and it's probably not surprising given the geography, for these birds to disperse generally southwest, not for migration, but to end up going southwest to breed as well. They're funneled up and down the coast between the Appalachian Mountains and the water. And so there's a lot of southwest to northeast travel. But we've had peregrine falcons from Acadia National Park nest in northern New Hampshire. You can see that on the map. We've had birds from Boston that have gone to breed in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. A lot of variety here. And but to get a dot on this map, you have to be identified in that location in the future. So we can't track an individual's motion or movement through this. We can only identify where it ended up at the time it was seen again. Requires eyes on the bird someplace, or in some cases requires recovery of the bird, either alive or injured or dead, in order to get that dot on the map.
Makes sense. On to the next one.
I think there's another one, yeah.
This one's
Now this is a little different. This is looking at 4 different adult female peregrines that we put satellite transmitters on back in around 2014 or 15. This map, the colors show 4 different individual birds and where they were breeding in the month of June 2017. You can see there's a cluster at Portsmouth for a bird that was breeding on the I-95 bridge. There's a cluster to the west, the purple one at Bellows Falls and Walpole, breeding on a cliff. And then there's two birds that were breeding up in the White Mountains. And it's interesting, although they nested near Newfound Lake and in Rumney, their dots in the month of June hardly overlap. They're discrete and separate because each of those is focused on a nest site at those 2 locations. So this is just 1 month of data from satellite transmitter birds during the breeding season. So you would expect them to be tightly compressed around the location of their nest. And that's what's in this picture. I think I go on to show migration after this. Here's these satellite transmitters that go on the back of these female peregrines. They actually have an antenna that sticks out. It's a spot on the bird that the bird really doesn't mess around with much. They can twist their neck in an incredible amount, but there's not much preening that goes on in that spot on their back. So putting those transmitters on with a backpack type unit, like you would wear a backpack, this is it's important to get the fitting right, and we have spent a lot of time making sure of that. Go ahead. This one particular bird I want to mention that nested around Newfound Lake for several years kept coming back to the Concord area in the late fall and doing some after breeding season hunting. We know it's that bird because we put ID bands on it too. You see AG on the leg of this bird. That's the bird we banded at Newfound Lake around 2015. And what's really interesting is that transmitter data, after 3 years of breeding around Newfound Lake, all of a sudden the bird moved about 30 miles west to Lyme, New Hampshire, and settled in a different breeding territory and nested for several years in a row at Holt's Ledge at the Dartmouth Skiway in Lyme, New Hampshire. But still in the fall would come back to the same farmland in the Merrimack Valley north of Concord for her pre-migration, recreation, I guess is a good way to put it. Footnote to this is where that, go ahead. This is where that bird goes to or went to every winter, the same roughly 100 square mile area in eastern Pennsylvania. near Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And the interesting thing about satellite tracking is if you have access to the data as it's being collected, you can see what the bird's doing in real time. The next slide shows its migration path back to New Hampshire in March of one of the years. I'm not sure which year this is, but you can see doesn't waste much time. That I know you can't see the dates on it, but it's a matter of about 3 days to work your way back to central New Hampshire from the breeding site. And it's really amazing to be able to track the path. If I showed you a slide of this for multiple years, you'd see that the back and forth path is very similar from one year to the next. This bird is following a route that's known to it. It's not randomly flying back and forth from Pennsylvania to New Hampshire. It knows the stopover points and knows some landmarks, or it has a compass in it that says go exactly this direction. But anyway, so that's satellite tracking, which again is certainly different than documenting movement through bands, and it's also different than documenting movement through MODIS, which can only track something that passes a tower. Only when there's a tower do you get data from it. So,
yep. And
lots
MODIS
of
is the
different
one
ways to
that's
go.
right. And MODIS, I think, is important to recognize. It is catching aerial view things, so things that are flying over it, not trotting, galloping, meandering below. So we're talking about
The other thing about MODIS is you can put those nano tags on very small birds.
And
the satellite transmitters can only go on birds about the size of a falcon. We don't have a way to get them on stuff much smaller than that yet.
Gotcha. The MODIS ones are going to be tracking dragonflies, folks. That's how small we're talking. That weight.
And butterflies.
And the butterflies, yep, which we'll be tagging, I believe, this fall. Topic for another conversation. So this is that banding experience I wanted to share with you guys because it's different across the board. And my question to Becky Swamala, who is another senior biologist at New Hampshire Audubon, who does not focus on raptors, although she too has a soft spot for them. Her passion is warblers, and it started at a super young age. If you guys ever get the chance to meet Becky and talk to Becky, she exudes passion. I joked with her, I said, I think being a birder was in your DNA, and she did not argue. So it's a quick video. There's 6 minutes of an interview. The first question I asked her was, what's an average day like at a banding station? And I think you guys will enjoy her response.
I'm not getting any sound.
Oh no. All right, if you guys are not getting the noise, let me make sure. This makes me so crazy that this doesn't do this. Share sound. All right, let's take 2. Here we go.
Okay, well, there's no such thing as an average banding. So keep in mind, I'm at a migration banding station. Okay. So we are banding migrants in spring and fall. Okay. So migrants, these small songbirds, we're not doing the big gulls, big raptors or anything like that. That's a whole nother kind of day in the field type experience. These are the small songbirds, the warblers, the sparrows, things like rose-breasted grosbeaks or orioles, those kind of small birds. Yeah. And they migrate at night and they stop during the day to rest and feed. And the station that I was at opened its nets from sunrise to sunset. So in May, I was just out there. Sunrise is 5:13 or so. So the nets are open by 5. Yep. So you are up at anywhere from 4 to 4:30, depending on how long it takes you to get ready to go down to the banding station and open the nets. Okay. And once the nets are open, you come back to the banding station and you set the timer for 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, you go out and you take the birds out of the nets. You come back to the banding station with the birds. You put them in either cloth or paper bags so you can bring them back to a central location. That allows the nets to be quiet with no activity around them for another 20 minutes. And during those 20 minutes, you take those birds that you have caught and you put bands on them. And the bands have those unique numbers. So it's like a social security number. It's a 9-digit number, and it's unique to that bird. So if anybody catches that bird anywhere, you know where it was banded and when. So you can identify the actual individual. So in that break, before you do the next net round, you process all your birds, you band them, you weigh them, you measure them, you check them for fat, and fat is their fuel for migration. So if they have lots of fat, they can migrate a lot farther. And if they don't have much fat, they need to fuel up before they can continue on their migration. And then after we've taken all those measurements, we let it go. And out it goes and on its way. And so 20 minutes after we came back from the net lanes, the timer goes off and out we go again.
Oh my goodness.
Over and over and over again until sunset, which is 8 o'clock at night. So it's a very long day. And then, this is my banding station I learned on, but I have also banded terns and I've banded gulls. And those are entirely different efforts. You do it differently, and you wear, if you're going to band terns or gulls, you may want to wear a hard hat. Actually, with gulls, you have to wear a hard hat. And so you may have a hard hat. I have an example would be like you have your hard hat, and then you try and get things that will stick up above the hard hat. So when the gull bombs you, it will hit those things instead of your head.
Oh my goodness.
So there are many different facets to banding. And, the peregrine banding is another one. It's
absolutely
very different kind. You're banding the youngsters.
Why is bird banding important?
We are able to get information by banding birds that we couldn't get any other way. Banding a bird and being able to identify it, just at the station that I'm in, we can look at what happens to birds I mentioned during stopover while they're on the island. Well, there's no way that we could get that information if we couldn't identify the birds that we captured. So if we get a bird and then we get the same bird 2 days later, we can measure, did it lose weight? Did it gain weight? Did it put on fat? Did it not? If we can't identify the same individual, we can't ask those questions.
Right.
We learn a lot of information by having a bird that's banded and being able to identify it uniquely. And certainly impact conservation efforts. I mean, the science itself will eventually impact conservation efforts, but when you have resightings at critical locations, that can influence a conservation of particular spots. And that started way back when with banding waterfowl. There's a very small percent of injury from banding, but there is that small percentage. And there is a risk. So one of the key things is banding is very heavily regulated in terms of you must have a banding permit. You must have a federal banding permit. You get your bands from the federal government. You must have a state permit to band. You must have training to get those permits. And you must have a reason to band. You must have some reason that will justify taking the risk to the birds of the banding process. It's not the band that would cause injury, it's the capture process that can cause injury. Doesn't matter whether it's mist nets, whether it's bow nets, whether it's the big guns, when they shoot a net over a group of birds to catch them. There's always a risk of injury during the capture process. So you want to make sure that whatever you're doing is going to provide some long-term benefit, some information that we need, something of value that will help birds in the long run.
She's incredible. And I hope you guys got a nice brief glimpse into what it's like at a banding station where the birds are coming specifically during migration. The photos below, I just wanted to include some imagery of some of the birds that Becky mentioned in that brief little interview. She had said that sometimes they catch red-breasted grosbeaks, which is that rose-breasted creature in the bottom left corner, and then the orioles. Those are going to be at that migration station. And then I threw in an image of a tern and a gull that could have been banded by Becky for all we know, because that photo on the far right of the gull, I do not know my gull species. I apologize. I do not know what kind of gull that is, but the photo is from the Appledore Island migration station. So for all we know, Becky was the one who did it. So let's continue on. There we go. All right, we're bringing it back home. We're bringing it back to our Manchester Falcons with some quick 2022 stats before we continue with where do they go from here. So there's some amazing folks on the YouTube channel that I swear lose sleep monitoring these Falcons. Some of them have night shifts, so they're up at the early hours of the morning, in the middle of the night. Some of them are just super, super committed to watching these. It turns into a habit. I imagine if I saw you guys in real life and I said, how many of you guys out there spent too much time on the webcams? 90% of you would sheepishly or enthusiastically throw up those hands.
I have a question, actually.
Oh,
I want to know how many of those webcam watchers experienced withdrawal this last week as they got scarcer and scarcer. That's what I want to know.
You guys can feel free to pop that. You can actually raise your hands in the chat. So if you'd like to say how many of you guys were really jonesing for your Falcon fix, feel free to raise your hands. Oh my gosh, 4 people have already raised their hands, Chris. 5. It's going up. I know my mom was. I know
the birds are still there. They're just not accessible on your computer.
That was great. Thank you guys. Thank you so very much. So this quick chart was created by some wonderful folks on this particular following. They're called the Manchester Falcon fans. And I wish I could give an actual name to who creates these charts, but it happens like magic. I'm sure there's someone out there. If you know who, if you are out here, please let us know, because I'd love to give you thanks. I monitor this as often as I monitor the chat because they know exactly what's going on. So this particular chart is showing when the eggs were laid. We even have the times because of these amazing cameras. Some of them have the time between when the eggs were laid, so some calculations were created. And then when they hatched, what gender they were banded with, because we didn't know the gender just from looking at them until Chris was able to assess the size of their legs during said banding. And then of course the number that they were banded with. And then that final column shows what could be the most important part, but also the most devastating. And that is saying when it was they flew the coop, they fledged the nest, or in the case of a lot of our Falcons this year, the term was called fludged, because many of them did not do it with the grace of the Falcon that we've seen where they just hop off the edge. It was more of a slip, scramble, and oh my gosh. But fortunately, we've had sightings on all of the chicks in the very, very, very recent time frame.
The fludge is actually the norm, okay? When there are other ledges right below that, that's where they end up. And that's one of the ways that they leave the nest the first time is by simply slipping off and going to the next level down. But on a building, that's more likely to be quite a considerable distance.
Indeed, and can cause a lot of us viewers some minor heart palpitations. So let's continue on. Now that they have all fludged or fledged, the question is, what are they doing? How are they getting on? How do we know this? And there was some stuff that happened pretty immediately after the first fludge. Maria Colby came in and scooped up this particular chick, our first fludge, and made sure that there was nothing wrong. I don't know the full story of that. There's been a lot of hearsay, but we know that Chris was able to return the chick. If there's any story you want to add to that, Chris, feel free. But the fact of the matter was the chick was unharmed and ready for release.
No, that Clem was examined carefully and watched for a couple days. I take Maria's conclusions without questioning them. She has the help of at least one veterinarian at the Ware Animal Hospital. And so we just brought that bird back. And in the time it was away, all the other chicks had left the nest box. So we had the opportunity to put this bird back in the nest box without causing any of the others to panic and fly off the ledge.
Mhm.
So it was an ideal situation.
Mhm.
And I think if you watched this, you saw that young bird immediately went from being worried about the biologist putting it back in the box to being worried about where its next meal was coming from, because it ran right out to the front, started yelling at the adult female
Mhm.
for food.
It's incredible. They don't skip a beat. Maria had said that she was, I'm not remembering how we sexed Clem, but was referring to this particular chick as vivacious and sassy and gave her quite a bit of commotion when she was staying at what a lot of us were referring to as the quail-fed B&B over at Wings of the Dawn. So we had a little scare with the first fledge. We had some talking tos when little Miss Colby decided that she would rather hang out on the roofs of some local cars than fledge back up to the buildings. So we had some altercations there, and that is Maria Colby having a little discussion, we believe, with
With her
Miss
namesake.
Little Colby,
Mhm.
who seems to be doing just fine now, but had a little more challenging beginning. And now, thank you to the photographer Liz Belcher for these incredible images, by the way. We've got some amazing footage of successful flying falcons.
Yeah,
And
I
it's
think
just
I think Liz has
astounding.
been there almost every day, because I keep seeing more and more images from her, and it's amazing to know, based on her images and the observations of other folks, that as of very recently, at least, all 5 of these youngsters are still doing well, and they're still alive, and they're all still associated with the environs around the building and the neighborhood. They haven't drifted off on their own at this point, and that's the best, because they need more training and more experience chasing with the help of the adults.
Speaking of, we've got some flying lessons, some hunting lessons. We can tell, some folks have asked, how can we tell the difference between the juveniles and the adults now that they're basically the same size? And aside from plumage and antics, it seems to be in every single photo. Now, this is not scientific, this is strictly observation. The juveniles are always screaming their heads off. They're typically following mom or dad and saying, feed me, feed me, feed me. So even though they've all fledged the nest, they're still presumably driving mom and dad bonkers. Now, here's another final shot for the evening. With just a few weeks ago, we were all experiencing the joy and a little bit of concern of, oh my gosh, there's 5 of them. There's 5 chicks. And fast forward just a few short weeks later, and we have 5 full-grown falcons.
Yeah.
Just,
I think the one on the top there is one of the parents,
I
from
think
what
that's another juvenile.
I can see. But on the bottom level there's the 2 with wings out on the right. There's 2 there, not just 1, and then at least 2 more. So
Great.
1 is unaccounted for in that picture. But I know that Mark Timmerman just a couple days ago had all 5 of the brown fledglings lined up on the rooftop edge of a nearby condo building. So they were still doing well at that point.
They have been accounted for, which is pretty amazing and exceptional.
One more thing, if I have time to say it, is the exceptional nature of this fledging of 5 chicks. This is only the 3rd time we've documented that in 40 years of falcon recovery in New Hampshire. Over 300 successful nest sites in all the years, not nest sites, but nesting attempts over those 40 years, but only 3 have produced 5 fledglings. So it only happens 1% of the time. And to get to this stage is remarkable. So this is a very successful pair in a very good environment for them, with a very safe nest site. All those things have to come together.
It's been astounding. We hope you guys have appreciated following along with them on the webcams, as well as joining us for these Resilient Raptor webinars. We've had so much fun putting them together and going through the photos, allowing this time frame of scrape creation to breeding and courtship to egg laying and incubation. You guys remember incubation that entire month? Just nothing but sitting and keeping warm. It's that first momentous hatch followed by the remaining 4 to have 5 all at once. And it's been awesome being able to share these experiences with you guys. Chris, you look like you had something to say. Am I wrong?
No, I just agree. And for me, it's always astounding the momentum that builds up once they hatch and how they go from these tiny egg-sized little white balls that can't even lift their head up to these full-size falcons that dance back and forth around that nest box and out on the edge as if it's nothing in the course of just 6 weeks. It's just amazing to me that how quickly that happens. And the learning doesn't stop at this point. Those guys are gaining skill with the help of their parents at an incredible pace now. And in about 3 weeks or so, we'll probably start to head off in different directions, mostly probably down the Merrimack River Valley, where they'll encounter all kinds of things they've never seen before. Eagles and other falcons and just you name it. And if we are lucky, a couple of those banded birds will be established in the next year to 3 years at a nest site somewhere else in the region and will be identified by their ID bands, and we'll be able to report back on them.
That's awesome. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to stop sharing the screen, folks, but we are here to answer additional questions because that was a very glossed over 45 minutes of bird banding, longitudinal monitoring, what's happening now. And we know that you guys have questions because some of you guys have been loading up my inbox, and I can't wait to actually get a chance to report back with our professional here because I do not, I'm tapped. I've reached my ceiling in terms of falcon knowledge. I have the whole rest of the summer to glean.
Can I see the questions, or is that something you're going to read? Because I don't.
I'm going to read them out to you if it's cool, Chris.
Right.
So the first one we've got here, which is an awesome question from Stephanie, is the triplets. Remember, we had 3 hatch on the same day. The triplets were laid on different days from the 21st to the 25th.
Good
How
question.
unusual is it for them to hatch on the same day?
It's unusual, but they didn't hatch simultaneously. What is typical is that usually the peregrine female won't go into full incubation when she lays the first egg. She'll sit on it a little bit. If it's really cold, she might shelter it more than she would if it was a warm day. But typically it's 2 days between each egg. And so oftentimes she doesn't really begin incubation until that second egg is laid. And so those two develop very close together, and we've come to expect a hatch of at least 2 in very short order after each other. The surprise was that the third one hatched within 24 hours of the first 2. That shows that it's not an exact ticking clock, that there's room for variation in the process, and whether that's an enthusiastic egg tooth on the third bird that got that shell open faster, or a thin shell, or it's you make up the answer. I don't know for sure what the cause was, but we did have 3 in less than 24 hours, which really did surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You and me both. I feel like we had bets going on here at the organization. I think someone is owed a beer. Before you guys head out, because we know you're probably itching, we tried to make this one quick for our final one. Before you go, we do have another brief poll because Chris and I and the rest of the NHA staff are contemplating a repeat performance of the Resilient Raptors webinar series. And our question for you is who you would like us to highlight. Now, we can't pick any bird in the entire world. There's too many to choose from. Some of them aren't from this particular region. Some might not even be from the New Hampshire area, never mind North America. And so hoping to keep Chris on, we're going to focus on Raptors, which means we've got 3 that we could try and replicate by using a similar webcam experience. The poll is going out right now. You'll see the 3, but it's going to be an option of the Peregrine Falcon for a second year as we work out the kinks from this year, the Osprey, one of our fish hawks, or the bald eagle. So take a second to weigh in.
Before you hit the button, folks.
It's already being hit.
That's too late. Just bear in mind that this does not guarantee that we will be having the same kind of quality local camera on these 3 species. It may be from a neighboring state. It may be from New Hampshire with a different partner. It could be from even outside of New England. Not guaranteed to be one that we have immediate control over. So just not trying to promise you more than we can deliver here.
Right. I appreciate that disclaimer right there. And that would be
Option D,
George.
I like that.
Barred owl. That opens up a whole different area and
Barred
avenue for
owl
research.
camera. That sounds
Yeah,
good.
that would be something. Owls could futuristically be in here, but I think this is all new, right? This is like we've been incubating this idea is to expand it so it's not just the Peregrine Falcon over and over, although we will always have that cam, we will have that cam accessible for as long as possible. But this type of webinar where we get to interact with a senior biologist who's been studying this and really making an impact on conservation for these species, we'd like to continue with this. And then futuristically, we'd exchange Chris, let him take a break, and have someone like Becky who does the warblers and the small songbirds and start really focusing on that. But
How about Nighthawk camera?
That's actually, Chris, that's not like top choice right now, but we don't know if we can do it yet. We got to get some funding, make sure we actually know what we're doing. But it's been so awesome working with you guys, and the feedback we've gotten has been phenomenal. So fingers crossed.
Thanks to the libraries for helping facilitate this.
Definitely.
Concord and Manchester libraries have done a great job.
I totally agree. If you guys, I don't know if they're up anymore, but the Concord Library in particular did an astounding display, absolutely exceptional. I'm going to show the results, so you guys should all be seeing that. It's very tiered. And Chris, it looks like your bald eagle is, yeah, Chris, we know the bald eagle is going to be your vote. I was rooting for the osprey, but it looks like that bald eagle is taking a fast and furious run for our money. So stay tuned. It's going to take us all winter to develop, but if we are able to secure funding, we are hoping to recreate resilient raptors with the, I don't know, we need some alliteration, folks, the bodacious bald eagle.
Okay.
I'll have you guys help with that too.
I have one question for Willa. In the chat, it says Chris Martin wrote "Bald Eagle is my vote." I did not write that. Who's this Chris Martin who's acting like they're me?
That's what I'm saying.
Do we have another Chris Martin?
I have 3 Chris Martins on my host panel list right here, which is, I hope we're not being like,
we're being hacked.
Zoom assaulted.
We're being hacked.
Awesome. Well, if we don't have any more questions, guys, I will start wrapping stuff up. I'm going to stop the share here and say, don't share your Zoom links because we might be getting hacked. Is that? Oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry, distracted.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yes, that's how okay. Sorry, so distracted with the chat. Thank you all so much. This has been a resounding success. It's been absolutely phenomenal interacting with you, communicating with you. Hearing your feedback has been phenomenal. Your final email that says, thank you so much for attending our webinar is going to have a link to a survey where we're asking for just a little bit more of additional feedback because that feedback allows us to secure future funders. So if you enjoyed our webinars, if you have suggestions on ways to improve them, please, we're looking for your honest opinions. Take a few minutes to fill it out. It'll automatically send back to us and we will hopefully be able to continue this for many, many years to come. Happy solstice, happy summer. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy field work to be here with us tonight.
Thank you to you too, and thanks to all the participants. I'm glad to have a chance to meet a lot of you. Thank you.
Awesome. There's the Chris Martin is saying great job to both of you. Maybe you've got a doppelganger out there, Chris. I got nothing for this one. Anyways, we're logging off. Take care, everyone.
Bye,
Be
everyone.
safe, be wild. Bye-bye. Good night.